He was the youngest son, the least expected, the one no one noticed. David of Bethlehem, a simple shepherd boy, yet chosen by God to lead a nation. In a world ruled by strength, wealth, and reputation, David was quiet, humble, overlooked. But God's ways are never like the world's. The Lord looks at the heart. David's story begins far from the royal palace, among the hills and valleys of Bethlehem. He tended sheep day in and day out, with nothing but a sling, a staff, and his faith in God. While his brothers trained with swords and shields, David's weapons were patience, courage, and trust. Alone with his flock, he faced lions, bears, and the harsh realities of the wilderness. Each day was a battle for survival, yet each day shaped a man who would one day face Goliath and rule Israel. And then came the moment that changed everything. The prophet Samuel arrived in Bethlehem, under God's instruction, to anoint the next king. Saul had failed. The people had rejected him in heart, and the Lord sought someone pure in spirit. Samuel looked at Eliab, the eldest, tall and strong. Surely this must be the one. But God said, "Do not look at his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not see as humans see. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. One by one, the brothers passed before Samuel, and then came David, tending sheep, his hands rough from work, his face filled with faith. Samuel felt the Spirit descend upon him. In that moment, an ordinary boy became extraordinary in the eyes of God. The anointing was quiet, unseen by the world, but it marked the beginning of a destiny that would shake kingdoms and inspire generations. David returned to his flock, still a boy, still unnoticed by the people of Bethlehem, yet God had planted a seed that would grow into greatness. The contrast between his humble beginnings and the future glory of Israel is staggering. A shepherd boy, overlooked by men, chosen by God. This is the recurring theme of David's life. God lifts the humble, chooses the unlikely, and fulfills his promises through the faithful heart. As David grew, so did his reputation. It's not for being a prince or warrior, but for his courage and faith. The story of David and Goliath is the most famous, yet it began with a smaller, quieter faith. Goliath, a giant, a symbol of fear, challenged the armies of Israel. Day after day, the Philistine warrior taunted the soldiers, mocking their God, daring them to fight. Saul's men trembled and hope seemed lost. David arrived on the battlefield not as a soldier, but as a messenger, bringing food to his older brothers. He heard Goliath's words and felt a fire in his heart. This giant, this mocking idol, was not stronger than the God he served. David's faith was unshakable, his courage unbreakable. He went before Saul, declaring, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul doubted. How could a boy face a giant? Yet David recounted his battles with lions and bears, how the Lord delivered him each time. "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine," David said. Faith, he understood, was not about size or weaponry, it was about trust in God's power. With no armor, no sword, only his sling and 5 smooth stones, David stepped into the valley. Goliath laughed, mocking him. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he roared. But David's eyes burned with resolve. "You come against me with sword and spear. But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel." And with 1 stone, 1 act of faith, the giant fell. David had done the impossible. This victory was more than physical, it was spiritual. It proved that God honors the faithful heart, that courage fueled by trust in him can defeat the greatest fears. David's faith was not about bravado. It was about obedience, about knowing that God is stronger than any giant, any challenge, any enemy. Word of David's victory spread. The young shepherd boy became a symbol of hope, an emblem of God's power. Women sang in the streets, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." And while David's fame grew, Saul's jealousy deepened. The man once anointed as king saw the boy he once overlooked now rise in glory, and his heart twisted with envy. But before David could take the throne, he had to survive the envy of a king. Saul welcomed him into the palace, gave him a place among his warriors, but suspicion and fear never left Saul's heart. Every success, every praise David received was a threat to Saul's crown. David became a fugitive in his own land, constantly fleeing for life, yet never fleeing from faith. Even in exile, David's character was formed. He didn't strike Saul when he had the chance. Twice he could have killed the king, yet he spared him, saying, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master." David understood that vengeance is not the Lord's, and patience in God's timing brings true justice. His humility in moments of temptation, his restraint, his courage, all of these, shaped the man who would become king. David found allies and friends along the way. Jonathan, Saul's son, became a brother in spirit. Their bond was forged in love and loyalty, a testament to God's design for friendships that transcend circumstance. David's men, a band of loyal followers, shared his faith, his hardships, and his vision. Together, they became more than a fugitive band. They became a family, a model of God's people standing firm in trials. The time of waiting was long. Years passed, and David grew in wisdom, strategy, and leadership. He learned to lead not for his own glory, but for God's kingdom. Every challenge, every exile, every battle honed him, preparing him for the throne. And when the time came, when Saul fell in battle and God's plan unfolded, David ascended not as a boy, but as a man after God's own heart, ready to shepherd a nation. David's rise from shepherd to king teaches us about faith, courage, and patience. It reminds us that God's selection is not based on appearance, status, or even age. He chooses the faithful, the humble, the obedient. Giants will rise, enemies will mock, and challenges will seem insurmountable, but faith, trust, and courage can topple every obstacle. David's story is still with us today. In every overlooked person, in every quiet heart, in every small act of faith, there is a giant waiting to be defeated. God calls the humble, the faithful, the steadfast, and through them, he changes history. David, the shepherd who became king, the boy who faced Goliath, the servant who trusted in God, styming his story as a reminder. No one is too small, too young, or too ordinary to be used by God. Giants fall, hearts are lifted, and history is rewritten by those who trust him fully. If David's story inspires you, remember, your courage matters, your faith matters, your obedience matters. You might feel small, overlooked, or powerless, but God sees your heart. Just like David, he can use you to accomplish the impossible.